Please work. Please work. Okay. Is my live? Okay, cool. I think it's working. Are we live on your channel or not? Danny's asking. It's up to you. Yeah, I think it will, but it's up to you. Like, I don't think that's the big deal. Yeah. I think some of you guys, yeah, just my name as well. Yeah, I think it's good our names aren't like overly common. Otherwise, it'd be a bit hard to find our channel. Oh, and my channel, I don't know who is asking, but my channel is my name. Yeah, Darren Tan. What was I sorting out? Oh, yeah, what was it? Hey, Aria on YouTube. Oops. Okay, I can't see the. Could you send the questions to me on Instagram to my other account? Because I think if I close it on my, just the one I sent the Zoom link on to you. I don't have the other account. I haven't like put it in yet. The one I'm using for the live. Okay. I just think it would be better. Like the account is like more focused. I can post more and stuff. Because the other one had a lot of like my high school friends and like, yeah, I just felt like having an account just for like YouTube and for me posting about stuff related to that would be good. But you have a couple of accounts, don't you? Which one? Like this one? Oh, okay. All right. So I got Zoom, YouTube, and OBS. Oh, hello, Josh on YouTube. Instagram is on YouTube. Oh, Aria, we're on both. So if you follow me on Instagram or Archer, we're live together. And YouTube, I think it's just me at the moment. But yeah, we can go through the questions. I'm curious about some of the mind mapping ones first. Like, how do you do mind mapping for study? I feel like you're much. How do you still do mind maps and all that? Van Dan, hello. Josh, hello. Yeah, so on YouTube, so we have some questions already collated, but if you guys have more questions, pop them either on Instagram or YouTube, and we'll try and answer them. Can you hear me? Nice, that's good. So you're live as well. Alright. Jaden asked me if I'm swimming tonight. I have swimming training. Depends what time this ends, but I would like to go to swimming, but I'm gonna do this properly as well. My coach is pretty chill, but I try and train a fair bit, especially when I don't have like an obligation. Wait, what sport? Swimming as well? Okay. With Archie Newton. Yeah. Yeah. Can you guys hear Archer? Oh no, they can't really hear you, I think. Is that a me problem? On YouTube they're saying they can't. They want you to be a bit louder. Oh, I think I know why. It's my problem. Um, did that do anything? Can you guys hear Archer better? Could you try saying something? No. So you have audio input capture and then mic and AUX. Which one did you... Do you know how to configure those or? Yeah. Okay. I think we'll just run with this. Can you guys hear him, or is it just like you literally can't hear him? Oh, they can't hear you. Let me think. Myself this. Let me think. Why isn't yours gonna work? Alright, we have some technical difficulties, but I think that's, yeah. Let's try and figure it out. Let me think. Audio capture. Okay, right. Yeah, I'll post this as an audio, as a video. The other option is that I just use your Instagram, like my phones, and just turn it up, and then just use the audio from that, rather than the Zoom audio. Alright, I'll just give that a go. Let's see. So, audio capture. I think I'll mute most. Do you know how to disconnect from audio on Zoom? I disconnect to then. Actually, no, they can't hear you anyway. Yeah, don't.
Oh, you muted yourself in Zoom, by the way.
Yeah, because I think I'll just use the computer's audio. Oh wait, then you can't hear me, can you? Never mind. Okay, yeah, all good. I think this way you might hear your own voice though. Are you okay with that on Instagram?
I'm just gonna turn Instagram off.
Yeah, sure. Alright, can you guys hear Archer now? I'm just using the Instagram's audio. So people on YouTube, can you guys hear Archer? I'm gonna try saying some stuff.
Hello. Alright, people can see you on my screen as well.
Okay, they can hear you. Yay.
Alright, I think we got there. It's not ideal, but it's good enough.
Low quality. Alright, doesn't matter. As long as they can hear you, it's fine. We'll figure it out for next time. Alright, so questions. Yeah, so I guess first question I was curious about from Archer was mind mapping for study. Are there like particular types of things you see and you're like, I'm going to mind map that? Or is that sort of like your general approach?
I don't know what we're going to talk about. We're going to talk to YouTube and hopefully Instagram can hear me as well. Essentially, there's like two types of knowledge that's important to know about when trying to figure out what to learn. So there's like declarative knowledge or memory, and then there's like procedural memory. So the easiest way to split the difference is declarative is about declaring things. So like definitions, concepts, where you typically want to understand things deeply. And then procedural elements is usually something like maths. When you're going ahead and actually solving a question, you're going through a system and steps. And that's like a procedure. So whenever there's something that's declarative, then I'm going to try and use mind maps for that, where there's the need for me to link different concepts together to kind of get that deeper understanding. A lot of the time, for something like maths, people think that there's not that much declarative components, but that's actually what you need to get like a high study score or like to get a high score in maths. Is like if you really understand those concepts quite deeply, then you'll be able to be prepared for any curveball that's going to be really thrown at you. So essentially the way that I look at the interplay between the two is that you want to spend a lot of your time on the declarative components so that you will have more time to study the procedural elements and then also have a better foundation and I guess systematic process to go through procedural kind of problems. So yeah, I essentially mind map as much as possible.
Yeah, that's good. Yeah, and I remember you had a thing on like flashcards. Oh, for me, mind mapping, I've tried it, but I think it does help me when there are a lot of words and when like a lecture isn't structured that well. I feel like mind maps helps me sort of see how things link to each other. Flashcards. So yeah, you go.
There's a lot. There's like a lot involved in mind mapping. And I don't think that the mind mapping that I do is the traditional type of mind mapping much at all. And if you go out there on YouTube and stuff, there's many different versions you can find. But yeah, when I first tried out mind mapping, I was sort of absolute trash. But I started to learn a little bit more about it and how complex it can be.
Alright. I'll try one more thing on YouTube. I'll try taking out my headphones and see if that works. Otherwise, we'll stick with this.
I know the way that you can fix it, but it requires you to restart your computer, which is just not worth it.
Yeah, can you guys hear me and Archer fine on YouTube? I'll wait for them to reply.
Yep.
Yeah, someone...
sweet spot in terms of balancing my phone.
Alright, the next one was about like flashcards and Anki. I use it a fair bit because I feel like it sort of tells me when to revise. I think that's something that's very useful for me.
Yep.
But yeah, I've learned like I don't make a lot of flashcards because I don't think that's the best use of my time. But yeah, I do try and do them like fairly regularly. What's your take on that?
So the way that I usually, I guess, teach about this is related to this thing called Bloom's taxonomy, or actually now Bloom's revised taxonomy. Have you ever heard of that before?
Yeah, it's like a pyramid, right?
Yep. So if you haven't kind of got active recall and spaced repetition already in your study system, then you should. So like it's better to be using Anki and flashcards than to not be using it at all. But what tends to happen is once you kind of get better at the higher order levels of learning, which are at the top level of Bloom's taxonomy, then you won't need to do so much of the lower levels. So like at the bottom of Bloom's taxonomy is the remember and understand levels. And so remembering is just like one, you could do that with flashcards. So you had to remember some random statistic or fact. But you can also understand some things, reach a level of understanding through some flashcards as well. But some of the like apply, analyze and evaluate are just not things that you can achieve through flashcards. So essentially what happens is that I think you have a pretty good grasp on it anyway, because you don't have flashcard overload. But a lot of people do fall into flashcard overload, which just means that they are not prioritizing some of those higher levels of Bloom's taxonomy, which causes them to compensate by creating more flashcards because they keep forgetting, and then they need more space repetitions and et cetera, et cetera. So I think like there can be that propensity for that to happen when you do use Anki flashcards. So I think if you're just aware about that as being a potential issue later on, then you're already on kind of the right track. But it's really funny. Like I can't remember. I can actually find the study. Actually, it says like retrieval practice, which is basically just referring to flashcards and Anki, seems to be better for those with lower working memory capacity. Students with lower working memory capacity, which is just really funny because it's like it's just saying that it's better for those who don't know how to study or learn. It's like really, really controversial.
Yeah, I think that makes sense. I think some of the decks that sort of older people leave for us have like a lot of cards, and yeah, I feel like first of all they're hard to get through, but second of all, yeah, it's probably not the best way of learning.
It gives you a good indication of what are going to be the important things for you to learn when you get up to those exams, but in terms of actually achieving learning itself, it won't happen so much through those decks unless you just kind of brute force your way through it. Essentially, it just comes from the idea is like how much effort are you having to put into, really understand it, someone else's deck of cards versus creating your own. Obviously, creating your own is just a lot more effort, and therefore that actually leads to more learning. But I use people's notes, their flashcards, like whatever resources I can get from an older student, I will use just to see what they've understood as the most important things. And then I can use that as just like a guide to know what things am I going to have to cover in my study later on, to make sure, I cover everything. So I use it as like a stepping stone to just scope out what are all the stuff that I've got to learn. And then I'll go ahead and use some learning techniques.
Yeah. Yeah, I like using other people's notes as well because they already have it. I think for pharmacology, so we have like our drugs and then what they do and that kind of thing. I think the notes that other people have made have really like set out for me really clearly what the drugs are, what they do, and I don't feel like I need to collate that from the lecture and write it out again because I don't think that would help me much. But yeah.
Do you use Amboss, by the way?
I've heard of that. Is it in? I have no clue what it is, but it sounds very familiar.
I don't know if you've gotten to using websites like UpToDate and Therapeutic Guidelines, those sort of things. But Amboss is basically like UpToDate, but a version that medical students can understand more easily. It's essentially just gives you all of the high yield information you need to know about what you're learning. So it's very, very useful.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I've heard of UpToDate and stuff because we had placement for a week and the older medical students were like showing me like stuff on UpToDate and like the clinical guidelines.
Yeah, it's kind of funny because when I saw UpToDate, I'm like, damn, like a lot of our job is just going to be looking at this website because it literally tells you everything that you need to do, all the algorithms, like if this person has this exception, this exception, take them down this path, give them this drug and whatever, this intervention or management. So it's very, very useful.
Yeah, that's good. I think because I don't have headphones on anymore just because then the YouTube audio is better. But that means there's a little bit of an echo with Instagram. So I guess it's probably better if you guys head to one of our YouTubes or Archer's Instagram Live. But if you're like okay to deal with the echo, then feel free to like stay in my Instagram Live as well. But I think this way the audio is probably the best. All right. Let's see. Okay, there's a question about study motivation. You were telling me before that for you, when you might be in a bit of a slump or something, you sort of turn on YouTube Live, and that keeps you accountable. Is that the way you sort of force yourself to do stuff?
For study, yes. I don't necessarily study too much anymore. And that's very lucky for me to kind of say that, just because obviously I just spend so much time looking into study techniques and things. So I do get reduced efficiency by live streaming. I was kind of saying that to you before, but it does give me the accountability of actually getting some solid work done. Otherwise, I'm pretty often getting distracted by other things. And it's not always like Instagram and TikTok, while it is a lot of the time, but I obviously do run some businesses. So people do need me, and that becomes a distraction as well.
Yeah. For me, I find like
Oh, my dog's barking.
for me, I find that in-person school sort of motivates me a lot more. Like when I see people know their stuff really well, that sort of motivates me to want to learn more as well. Like the people I surround myself with. So when we had online uni, that I didn't wasn't as motivated then. But when I have uni now, I have
Yeah.
like Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, Friday. I see intelligent people. I see my tutors who are like surgeons, and they're just like naming stuff just so easily. That sort of motivates me to study the content that I have.
Yeah, I mean, like essentially, as soon as I get to uni, and I don't go to uni that much because we can do a lot of it online. But whenever I do, it's just like, damn, these guys like study a lot. Like they know a lot of things. So I definitely get that as well.
How many hours do you study? I know this is something you've covered a lot. Do you want to go through like the progression of how many hours you've studied the past couple of years?
I studied the most in year 10. I don't know how many hours, but it was literally every minute I had free outside of co-curriculars. Then I burnt out by the end of year 10. And so I realized I can't do this in year 11 or year 12 if I want to get into medicine. So then started to really get into study techniques. And now that I look back at it, it's like I hardly knew anything back then. But I did study less in year 11, and then it became less in year 12. And then it's like get less and less and less as I'm going up the years, which is really funny because it's supposed to be the opposite, especially with something like medicine.
I think it's really hard to study less, especially in like year 12, I guess, and like VC years, because you always think to yourself like if I study more, it's just sort of makes sense that you would do better. So it's really hard, I guess, to sort of get out of that mindset.
Yeah, so I think there's like a lot of cognitive biases. And I try to think about that a lot. I mean, a book that I was reading recently, not recently, like a few months ago, is this book called Think Again by Adam Grant. And it's literally just a whole book dealing with how we think we're right or we think this way about particular things. We have this intuition, and it's just like dead wrong, like a lot of the time. And there's so many good examples in that book, but I think this happens for everyone. It's like as you just get a bit more experience, you realize like what you were doing before was like really like dumb a lot of the time. I don't know. It's just the way I look at my life.
Yeah,
Like,
something
what I was doing before was not smart.
something I'm pretty big on is because like for everyone, learning's like a journey. So I haven't gotten all the study techniques mastered. You see, like archers change a lot since year 10. But I think like in the meantime, as you shift, it is quite important to like put in hard work. There's sometimes it will take you a bit of time to find like a more efficient way of doing things. But I feel like, yeah, like in that transition period, you do need to put in hard work to sort of back it up because you haven't worked things out completely yet.
100%, yeah.
All right. Any tips for studying as a grade 10? I guess it's pretty appropriate for you after you just talked about your grade 10.
Um, I guess I always say this, and I'm sure you've heard me say this a lot. Just to like focus on skills if you can, because the skills that you develop are always going to be with you. So I'm talking about like things like study learning, but any other thing as well, like that you think is going to be useful when you're older. Essentially, because like grade 10 is like the most time you're going to have until you graduate. So, uh, when things get a little bit harder as they do in year 11 and year 12, you're not going to have as much time to really, I guess, adapt and get prepared. So if you are wanting to get adjusted very early, then focusing on that and those skills is quite important. I just realized that my what's it called? My voice was just very quiet on my YouTube screen. So yeah, that's my thoughts. What do you think a year 10 student should do? I think a year 10 student should just relax, but I mean, I couldn't relax in year 10.
Yeah, I think that's sort of retrospective stuff for everyone. Like each year level that I was in at school, I thought was like the most important. I thought I had to study really, really hard. And then I got to year 12, I was like, year 6 didn't really matter that much. But then when I was in year 6, I was like, I really want to, ducks like primary school. And then once I hit uni, I still think year 11, 12 is pretty important. But then looking back at like year 9, 10, I was like, I could have relaxed a bit more. But I guess for someone who is in year 10, definitely like try things. Like don't be too concerned with your grades. Try and push the boundaries of like what you think might work for your study. Like try different mind mapping, whatever, and try to maybe not do what you've always done. And then your results can sort of be like an experiment to see what works for you. Because the stakes aren't like that high in year 10.
Yeah, it's again just like learn as much as possible in skills and whatever you're learning, but don't be too worried about the grades because again, your grades in year 10, yes, they actually don't matter compared to your ATAR. So, if you're focusing on the skills and learning and experiences that you can get that will make it better for you when you reach ATAR year, then that's actually way more important. And I had some of this mindset in year 11 and year 12, and it's very hard to actually apply and just be like, because like I did some year 12 subjects at the same time as year 11, and I would consciously have to be like, okay, I'm going to get a poor grade on this year 11 assessment so that I can focus on this year 12 one. And obviously like people are like, oh, you didn't get like 95% whatever. It's like, yeah, okay, cool. But like, I need to focus on this year 12 thing.
Yeah. Actually, another point with what we were talking about earlier about thinking that studying more is sort of better. For me in year 11, and I've talked about this a bit on my channel, I didn't do... Year 11, I think, was my worst year overall academically because I over-focused on my year 12 subjects and I neglected my year 11 subjects. I sort of had like too much time on my hands for those two particular subjects, so I guess over-studied in a sense, or I didn't do the right things. Whereas in year 12, in term 2 and 3 particularly, we have a lot of... Do you guys have SACs, like, during the year?
We call them SATs.
Okay, right. Yeah, so we had those a lot. And then with that, I had to be like really efficient with my time. I had to make like decisions. There's a SAC in 2 days for this, but there's a SAC in 3 days for this. And I felt like I had the appropriate amount of study for each subject, and that actually yielded me like much better results in year 12 than year 11.
Yeah, I think year 12 is a lot about just managing. I think that it's probably the most stressful year I've had, but it teaches you a lot, so it's good for life, I think.
All right, we have another question about picking subjects for year 11 and 12. For me, at my school, I was like, there are people in my school older than me who are similar to me in the sense, like, you sort of have groups of people moving through school, and those guys were quite similar to me, and you sort of do the similar subjects as them. You sort of like follow in their footsteps. So if you're good at maths, right, in Victoria, you do like methods spec. That's pretty classic. For anyone who's good at maths in the future, in the past, they'll all do that. English is pretty standard, unless you don't really like English, but I was fine with English, so I went with English. And then whatever language, usually like one language or whatever language you have, as long as you're doing decently in it, you would continue with it. And for med, chemistry. So it's sort of, a lot of it's pretty set just based on what you've done in the past. And the special subjects for me, I guess, were Latin and English language. And English language because I had to pick up another subject, and Latin because I just really liked it. This is a very interesting subject.
Cool.
How about for you, Archer? Did you make any deliberate choice in your subjects, or was it more natural?
Is that the question? I didn't hear the question.
Question
Sorry, my
was
dog is
how to
really
pick your
distracting.
how to pick your subjects for year 11 and 12.
I very much struggle to remember what year 11 subjects I chose, because in year 11 I was basically doing year 12 load. But I think when I'm speaking to students about this, it's just like, choose the subject that you think you're going to score the highest in. So whatever you need to justify that, whatever you think you're going to score highest in, because that will affect your A type. I also made choices based on the teachers that I would actually get. Just because, a little bit of, I guess the game is a little bit luck based, I think. If you have a really bad teacher, they're just going to make your life a lot harder. But most of it is actually in your own control, and you should focus on just getting 100%, no matter the teacher you had. But I did, sorry, the dog's still barking. Biology, I didn't do chemistry, I did physics, I did both maths, the hardest two. I did normal English, not the hardest English. I did 2 musics. I did this thing called research project. I did psychology, and I did 2 university subjects at the same time. But overall, I don't think that your subject selections matter too much. That's my opinion, because regardless, you just need to get high marks. Scaling is somewhat of a factor, but again, it's not in your control. You just need to get the highest marks possible in whatever you choose.
I realized for me, I talked a bit about myself there, but in terms of how for this football vibes to pick his subjects or her subjects or their subjects, I think normally whatever you're studying in year 9 and 10, the bulk of it you'll carry through with you to year 11 and 12. If you're doing really badly in some subjects, or if you're particularly interested in another subject, then those are the additional choices. I guess the big debate people have is a subject you like versus a subject you'll do well in. But I think in those cases, people often pick the extremes, a subject they really like, but they do terribly in, and then the subject they hate, but they do really well in, which I don't think is a very common case. So I think just find a balance. A subject you like, you'll probably be doing fairly well in, which is pretty normal to continue with in the future.
Yeah, I think gut feeling is what I went with in the end as well. Because once you balance off all factors, choose the ones you think you're going to get the highest mark in. You may not enjoy it. I definitely didn't enjoy English when I was doing it, but it did end up being my second highest subject. So it's just 1 year, you'll make it through. But as long as you don't think it's going to affect your actual end of year result.
Yeah. How early in a year should a year 10 student prepare for end of year exams? I guess we can broaden this out just in general. How early did you prepare for your end of year exams?
The week before.
For every year since year 10?
Well, we had semester exams in year 10, but we had semester exams the whole 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. But as a practice in the middle school years. But I was very unorganized in year 10. So I just didn't know how to manage my time. So I just did it the week before. Again, if you're very keen and you're in a better position than I was, by all means, use that opportunity to test your potential. But it shouldn't matter too much.
Yeah. I don't remember how early I studied in year 10, but I remember in practice exams, especially in year 11 and 12, the big deal is completing a lot of practice exams, and you have quite a lot to do. So I would start quite early, because with most revision, it's not that useful if you do 10 practice exams in 2 days, because you're not really going to gain much out of it. So I started quite early and then maybe space it out. I did 1 exam a week for maths and sometimes 2 a week. But mostly just 1 a week and not overdoing it too much.
Yeah. As a side thing, I just realized that I did year 10 5 years ago, which is as long as high school is. So it's quite a bit of time for me, and it's becoming a bit of a blur.
Yeah. I agree. I guess VCE for me wasn't that far. It's like 2 years, but it feels a long time ago. It feels like a different world, different people, like different environment to me.
I think it's because of COVID, you know, like I just don't feel the same since COVID. Like just things have changed too much.
Yeah.
Because I also, like, as soon as I graduated, that's when COVID hit. So I haven't had a life outside of COVID-ridden life.
Because you're a year old. So did you graduate in 2021? Oh, no, sorry, 2019.
Yeah.
Okay.
So as soon as I got out, that's when COVID hit. So I had 1 week of uni, and then it was like COVID.
Yeah, true. You wouldn't have really had much of a... Yeah, I guess it would have really disturbed your uni initiation.
Oh, well, I mean, I didn't meet people until like second year, like some people. We just never saw them for the whole year. And then also like we had to know all these skills, so like how to use micropipettes and stuff. And we didn't know how to use them. So we got into second year and they expected that we knew how to do it. But literally in first year, we just watched people online do pracs. That was our way of learning it. So we were like really confused and we very much struggled second year, but it was okay. But I'm looking forward to COVID disappearing.
Yeah. For us, like all our classes are in person at the moment. Our lectures are all pre-recorded, which has been a change after COVID,
Yep.
which they're keeping, which I think is good. But yeah, all our classes are in person. I guess my uni is kind of over with COVID, I guess, or managing it pretty well.
Yeah. I just don't attend. So if there's like a practical, like we can go in, do dissection, I will not attend.
Really?
I just will get by without it, yeah. But if anything is compulsory, I obviously go.
Now for us, have you been to a dissection? I find it like really enjoyable, and I feel like I learn a lot from. I feel like I would miss other stuff rather than.
I like it's very fun, but for me, like when I'm trying to optimize everything, I know I don't need it right now, or I don't need it for a long time, so I can kind of just learn it quicker when I actually need it, which is probably going to be this next semester because it gets compulsory then. But I think it was more of like a just exploratory thing for people this semester at least. But I'll always go to like the emergency stuff because that's fun.
Okay, yeah, that's cool. I'll just answer a quick VCE question. Average exam mark for a Raw 14 Chem. So, if you go to like statistics for VCAR, which is like the Victorian like, assessment body, they tell you the exam marks for A plus A, B plus B for each year, and A plus is just a 40. So whatever exam mark you needed for an A plus in that particular year is what mark you needed to get a 40. Alright, I'll go back to the Instagram questions. How do you keep in mind that the subject is just a 1-2 and the test result doesn't go anywhere? I'll just answer this one while Asher grabs his dog. So how do you keep in mind? I didn't find it that difficult to keep in mind that a subject was just a 1-2 because you have... I guess there's two scenarios. One is like all your subjects are 1-2s, and one is that some of your subjects are 3-4s. I guess in the case where your subjects are 3-4s, that's pretty good to put everything in perspective. But I feel like this question is more if all your subjects are 1-2. I feel like in that scenario, you should just view it as sort of year 9, year 8. All your subjects are pretty equal, and you should just focus on what you can gain from each test rather than like the actual mark itself. Yeah, hopefully that helps. Mel is one of my students. She also asked, how do you avoid burnout, especially in year 12? Do you have any ideas?
There's a lot that can be said about this. Usually when I speak to my students about it, it becomes to figuring out okay, why. Something could be due to like motivation issues, like just things going on in life. You're really busy. You can't manage your time. You've been hit back. There's setbacks from like tests and stuff. There's a lot of things. But generally, with burnout, if you do get burnt out, obviously people say like take a break. That's kind of, it's good, but it's like it's a band-aid. It doesn't properly solve the problem. When I start thinking about burnout, it's really just about like, okay, well, we need to think about how you end up in that situation and how can you get better at managing everything that's going on. Because obviously, as you go next year, things are just going to get more and more intense. So it's just an opportunity, really to kind of refine whatever systems you've got going on and fix it up there. So like, for example, you might be very heavily dependent on motivation and willpower to get started in studying. You can instead replace that with better habits or just like better organizing your environment so you don't get distracted by your phone or something so much. Because the way that like motivation and willpower really works is it's like a battery. It will drain, and that's when you burn out. So if you keep having things that need to use your willpower and motivation, like starting to study and putting away the phone when you're procrastinating, that will add up over time and make you more likely to burn out. So how to avoid burnout, I think it's really just about figuring out what do you think are the potential causes, and then you have to kind of go there and think about experiments about how to deal with each thing in particular. If you don't do that, then the problem is that you can just burn out again when similar situations arise. So always take it as a learning experience. And I know it's very hard. I really did not enjoy being burnt out, but it taught me a lot about how the world works. So hard work is definitely necessary, but you do need to have a lot of skills around that to make sure it's directed successfully towards a goal that you have.
I guess some general things you can try are like having things arranged each week that you enjoy and you look forward to. So for example, uni is very hectic for me because I had to travel to uni most days, which is pretty far, and then I had to study, like obviously. But I had basketball with my friends, like we have a match every Saturday night, and that gave me something to look forward to a lot of the time. And yeah, I found that helped me a bit. So you can try having things like that.
Yeah, those things are very important. I routinely would just go on my drum kit and just like get rid of all my energy or anger. Or I always go out every weekend if I can to meet a friend or something like that. Like after this, I'll probably go out because we just finished our semester, so all the med students are out partying. But yeah, you got to have stuff that helps you manage your emotions, and that's what's called self-regulation if you search that up on Google. So yeah, you learn more about that.
Alright, another question from P. Vanden, who's asked us quite a few questions, which is good. Time management tips. I remember you had a video on this like a couple weeks ago, on like how you manage your time with like a particular app or anything.
Oh yeah, a reclaim video. A lot of videos I have on time management. Similarly, again, just because I've kind of said a lot of things around time management, it depends on what the issue is. Is it that, is it actually time management is the first question that I usually ask. Because like some people think it's time management, and then it's just that they study a lot, but they're just studying so much because they can't get through material quick enough. So it's like, you are already managing your time well. Like, you're spending all your time studying, but it's actually a study efficiency and study learning issue as opposed to time management. So the first question is like, is it a time management issue? The second question is really just trying to figure out now what's the cause of the time management issue. Is it procrastination? Because again, that's not time management. And then we start getting things like, let's look at your schedule. How well are you following your schedule? Is your schedule like unrealistic? That sort of stuff. But yeah, you probably noticed, Darren, that like a lot of these things are quite common. So there's like a systematic process that now I kind of will tell students to follow. But yeah, tips, I guess.
Yeah, that's good.
I don't know, man. Yeah.
I'll just go to some VC ones quickly, and then we'll go to some UCAT ones, I think, which we could both talk about. So yeah, someone's asking if I'm averaging 80% in Unit 3, this is on YouTube, can I still get a Rule of 40? Like 80% is variable between schools because each school, the SAC's different. But I'd say if you're like in a decent cohort and you're above like average, you do have a chance to get a Rule of 40 just if you perform in the exam. Even if you're average in like a pretty good cohort, then you can still get a Rule of 40 if you do really well in the exam. So the main thing, I guess, is to assess where you're sitting in your school and how well people at your rank usually do in your school, because that's a pretty good predictor for most schools of how people will do. Alright, I think someone asked...
Yep, I know nothing about that question.
Which is fine. Someone asked, is a month enough to prepare for the UCAT? What are your thoughts on that, Archer?
I see these questions quite a lot. It's like, yes, okay, it is enough if you like manage it, but if you don't manage it, then it's not enough. It's pushing it, of course, but you know, everything's possible. But yeah, you just got to try. Like, that's all you can do. So I don't really have much else to say about that.
Yeah, I agree. Like, because you have a month, the margin of error and the margin of error you have is very small. Like, if you spend time doing other stuff or you're not working as efficiently as you could be, then it's much more costly because you only have a month left. Yeah, but yeah, once again, it is possible, but difficult.
Quite tricky. I wouldn't say I'll be able to do it.
Yeah. Okay, someone asked, what should they actually do if they're scoring in the 30th percentile at the moment and want to get into the 90s by August?
Well, you're gonna have to figure out what's going wrong. Again, it's really hard to kind of communicate this without, I guess, seeing what's going on. But yeah, if you're getting 30th percentile, I mean, it's a pretty good indication that what you're doing isn't working. So you need to kind of just, I would say at that point, like, you need to figure out like how to do the questions from something. Like, you can use YouTube or any other things that are out there on the internet. But if you're at 30th percentile, there's some pretty decent flaws, unfortunately.
Yeah. In my opinion, if you have like a good grasp of the UCAT, like a good, I'll explain what that means. But if you have a good grasp, you shouldn't be at the 30th percentile. You'd be like 70, 80, I guess. Like if you're doing every question, and you're getting through the sections, you like kind of know what the UCAT is about, and it's not like your first time ever with no clue what the UCAT is, then usually you should be doing like 70th percentile. I think 30th percentile is usually if you like, someone just gave you the UCAT, some person off the street just gave it to you, and you didn't know that it's so time pressured and all that. So I think, yeah, just, you kind of want to figure out what's going wrong, and it's probably time, in my opinion. You're probably like missing a lot of questions. So I think just push the pace a lot more, and see where that takes you. And then after that, I guess focus on like specific sections and specific mistakes. And all that.
As a side experiment, just see how you go without time. Because without time is your max. It's like you're not going to be better with time as a factor. So, you know, if you do it without time and you get 70th%, then you know that's kind of your max. But every now and then it's useful just to see how you go untimed, unpressured, because that's your true accuracy.
Yeah. Just in response to my earlier VC question, I said, what if you don't have a strong cohort? Then you'd have to be ranked higher. Yeah, like that's literally it. If you don't have a strong cohort, then you need to be ranked higher because people are going to do worse than someone in a really good cohort. Dole D asked you specifically, can you expand a bit on your system of how you test your knowledge mastery?
Okay, so there's kind of two ways to the system that I use. Again, you can Google this if you want to see the diagram. It's called multi-store model of memory. So it's like encoding, which is like trying to get information into your long-term memory. And then you have retrieval, which is ensuring that you can actually use the information that you've learned and apply it into questions. So I think this question in testing my knowledge is more about the retrieval part of the multi-store model of memory. So retrieval sounds a lot like retrieval practice, which is active recall. Yes, that's one of the ways you can do it, but you can test yourself in many different ways, and you should, because variation in your practice is this thing called interleaving, which some people have heard as a technique. And you definitely want to do that because, I mean, like, you're going to get a lot of variation in questions in your actual test. So, no, there's a lot of good science on this that, you know, for example, like if you're, I don't know, trying to do a free throw in basketball, you don't want to just keep doing it from the exact same spot. You want to actually do it from a slightly different spot every time, and then you get good at all of them. Instead of kind of like, you know, doing 5 shots from the center location and 5 shots from slightly to the left and 5 shots slightly to the right. You just actually want to vary it all of the time. So I use a lot of interleaving, a lot of variation. So I might do practice questions, might do practice papers, might do teaching, might do creating questions, might try to recreate the mind map, do a brain dump. I often do this thing called thought experiments, which is where I try and think about all the things that I currently know and try and create new relationships between the information that I've learned, which is fairly complicated. But it's like you just sit down and you just think. It's like, oh, what would happen if I changed this thing? But yeah, that's kind of how I test if my knowledge is there. But I spend disproportionately more time on the encoding part than the retrieval part. I try and get really deep understanding so that I won't need as much practice to iron out all of the issues, because the issues would have been already ironed out beforehand. Fairly complicated to do, but it does significantly reduce the need to do flashcards and practice questions and such. So that's why I do it. It saves a lot of time.
All right. I'm curious about your answer for this one, but what is the best mindset to have during exams to keep your focus and not panic? I don't know if you were like someone who gets nervous or you're like pretty calm just in exams in general in year 12 and in uni.
I think the last time I was stressed for an exam was year 11, because that was the first time I did year 12 exams. So then going in year 12, I had already done year 12 exams, so it didn't feel that nerve-wracking, besides the fact it's like, this is my final shot. But also getting into university, you know, I don't know how you feel about this, Darren, but like, because I'm in medicine, it doesn't feel as scary. It's like, for when I was in year 11 and year 12, it's like, if I don't do well in this exam, I might not get into medicine. But now that I'm in medicine, it's like, oh, well, you know, I want to do well in this, but if I don't, then that's okay. So my mindset is very much, I just focus on what's in my control a lot. I think that's a big thing for me that I've done since I was like, when I really started this process in year 10, because there's a lot that's out of your control, but there's also a lot that's in your control, and that's all that I'll focus on. And if there's something I'm worrying about and it's not in my control, then I just tell myself, you know, stop it, dumb brain. Like, you know, you can't do anything about that. So just focus on what you can, and that will just be like keeping focused, sitting in the exam, not letting myself get distracted. I think it's quite hard. I don't know how you find it with your med exams now, but like, our med exams are not extremely invigilated as they were in high school. So like, there's a lot of chatter outside of our examinations like today. They're definitely more serious like during the exam, but around the exam it's like pretty easygoing.
Yeah. Our exams are pretty interesting this year. Like, it pretty infamous, I guess, in Melbourne. Because for Monash Uni specifically, our ones are online, so we do them on our computers. But we go to uni to do them. And there's like one guy who kind of walks around. They're invigilated online though. There's one guy who's like there just for
ours are individuated in the room.
Yeah, we have one person there who sort of just walks around and stuff. But he's more like, if we have problems, we ask him. He's not there to like make sure we like don't cheat or whatever. But we have like an invigilator online, so that was a bit different. In terms of me, Yeah, I just found I was sort of like sick of being stressed. I would get pretty nervous in year 12 for my exam because they were pretty important to me. But I sort of said to myself, it's much more worthwhile if I'm spending time like stressing more about the question, like concentrating on the question, rather than stressing about what my marks going to be and the impact it's going to have on me in the future. Um, on YouTube, I see Kitty ask, how long did you study for the UCAT? I studied since January of the year that I was sitting it, so 7 months, and I sat it like the 1st of July, like the first date that I could sit it on. How about you, Archer?
I started the last of July, just before my birthday, because my birthday's on the 31st, so I did it on the 30th. So it was a good birthday present. But I studied in January as well. I'm that old, so that I actually was doing prep for the UMAT, and then in September that or something they were like, oh, let's not do the UMAT anymore, let's do the UCAT. And so then that kind of just like threw all my preparation out of the work, and then kind of focused on it, more when January hit.
Okay. I mean, they're pretty similar questions, right? I haven't seen any UMAT papers, but from what I've heard,
It's harder,
the UMAT's
I
harder.
think. Yeah,
Oh,
UCAT's easier. It's just faster.
okay,
UMAT required a lot more thinking, and it was a lot longer.
right. Are there any questions on your YouTube or anything, Archer?
There's a question for me, I think. How do I keep up with every single subject, all 6 in terms of spaced repetition? I don't, because I don't know how yours is structured as well, Darren, but we kind of just have like one topic. It's like not 6 topics, it's just like one super topic, which is just medicine. And then we have like some of the splits onto themes like knowledge and health, illness, clinical stuff, doctor and patient, advanced studies, personal and professional development. And then we have like a portfolio and stuff, but it's mostly just medicine. But to keep up with all your spaced repetition, it probably just means you need to improve your encoding to reduce how much spaced repetition you need, but also make time for your spaced repetition on the weekend or something like that. But if it's really hard to keep up, you have to figure out why. Is it because of time management issues? Is it that you're not quick enough, etc., etc. Again, but I think there's a question here for you, Darren. Though, how many schools did you apply to practice your MMIs?
Did my live ended? Did yours end, Archer?
It did end. Yeah.
Oh well, I don't know why. We can just go with YouTube then.
Yep.
Yeah, alright, we'll go with YouTube. Unis, I didn't want to move, so I only applied for Monash. In hindsight, like, yes, maybe it would have been good practice to do MMIs at some other unis. And in the end, it turned out that all the interviews were online because of COVID. But I think, my answer is I only applied for Monash, and I only did MMIs for Monash.
Yeah, I did MMIs at Newcastle as well. They didn't exist at Queensland when I was first accepted into there, but I applied basically anything southern or eastern that didn't require chemistry. So I didn't apply to Monash because they have required chemistry.
Oh, okay. What schools do we need?
Cool.
Some BC questions I'll just go through quickly. In Lang, how many ACs and essays did I write roughly? I don't know. I really don't know. Essays I built off paragraph banks much more than I wrote essays. Because I could adapt them to essays pretty easily. But maybe like 8 essays. Like 3 homework ones and then 5 just timed ones when exams and SACs came closer. And ACs maybe like 8 or 9 as well throughout a year. Okay, Meme Viewer asks, how did both of you remain motivated through year 12? I think your audio is a bit soft. Or are you muted? I can't hear
Yeah, just give me a second. My mum's at the door.
you. Oh, no worries. Alright, so for me, being motivated, I had the potential to do really well in in high school. Like I had really good subjects. I was doing well in those subjects, and they had the potential to bring me to like really, really high up in the state. And the thought of that really motivated me because it's the only time when everyone's in the same competition, sort of, and everyone's grouped together and all gunning for the same thing. So I was really excited by that, and that prospect motivated me. Plus my school does well. Plus I had amazing teachers and people around me, and that general environment motivated me as well. Yeah, so still the question of motivation. I just gave my thoughts on it.
I just knew I needed to.
You're a bit soft.
Yeah, I was just listening in. I just knew I needed a high ATAR to get into med, but the thing that made me go for the 9.5 was literally YouTube. Like, just the fact that when I got this ATAR, then I could make a YouTube channel, and then kind of start talking about all the things that I started learning, after year 10. There was no need for me to get the 0.95. But to stay motivated through it, again, I often get asked this question from people who may struggle with motivation throughout a whole year. I'm definitely not going to say that year 12 was perfect. I distinctly remember 1 month before UCAT, I think that's when I broke down, had a breakdown. But essentially, again, I had a lot of practice in terms of self-development to be able to pick myself up and, keep resilient and all that sort of thing. So when motivation was I guess not there, then I'd be able to get back onto things. But kind of comes back to the similar question, if you're burning out, take a look at your habits. Are you relying too much on willpower and motivation to get things done? Can you replace that with habits and systems that don't mean you have to rely on that? And that can just make it easier and mean that you don't need as much motivation to get moving. That's what I think.
Yeah. Okay, next question. What do they look for in university interviews? And probably specifically med interviews. Or what type of interviews did you sit? Just MMIs, or did you do the panel as well?
I did panel, I did mixed, and I did MMIs.
Okay.
At the end of the day, they're looking for your suitability to assess if you are going to be a good medical student. So they look at that in many different ways for each university. A lot of the time they look at your characteristics and personality. They don't look at how much you volunteered and how much extracurriculars and stuff you've learned. They want to know more about you as a person and your values and all that. So they're looking for those kind of things.
Yeah, in that case, I think if you put yourself in the shoes of the examiner and you imagine a person, it's like a light behind me, a person coming in to interview for med school, it's a lot of the time when you meet someone, it's the air they have about them, how they carry themselves, the way they talk, the way they sort of explain situations. And I guess med interviews, how you dissect certain things and discuss what reaction you would have to different scenarios. Those are really important. So, yeah, I guess they look at your actions in the interview much more than the specific stuff you've done in the past or achievements.
Because if you just think about it this way, someone who's from a very rural background compared to this person who's always gone to private school and just was born into a very nice life, they can't compare based on how much volunteering experience you've done or how many leadership opportunities you've had. They have to see from your actual character, what type of person you are. And so people have a lot of complaints about interviews, but it's got to happen anyway. So, there's just that fact you have to deal with.
Yeah. What courses are you doing? I just studying med as well. Just not at Flinders, did you say?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, Flinders University. Alright, next question. For both of us, Rex asked, how do you deal with being influenced by friends over time, which takes you away from your goals? For me, I think someone said like ages ago, something like TikTok reel or Instagram reel or something. It was like, if you are like the average of the people you surround yourself with. Like if you're surrounded by like, if you're all three of your friends are really keen gamers, you're probably going to be a keen gamer as well. If all three of your friends like are a particular type of person, you're very likely going to be that particular type of person. So I wouldn't go as drastic as to change your friendship group, but maybe associate with them in specific areas and specific times. Like you don't have to be with them all the time. And just make sure to really set boundaries with that and be okay with that, because it's a very good thing to do, and I think it's normal to not have to be with someone all the time.
Yeah, I think that's a very big thing when you move to university, because you kind of start fresh, and it's the first time where you kind of have to do that in a long time. So like I've definitely had to move away from friends that, you know, I prefer to be friends with them, but it's just out of alignment with how I want to spend my time, or expectations couldn't be, I guess, reorganized. Because like, for example, I mean, for those who do know me, I'm quite busy a lot of the time. So some people who kind of need to see their friends all the time, it usually won't work well between me and them, because I just can't commit to that with some of the goals that I have. So that's kind of a problem for me. But when I was in that's more of a university problem, and when you just become a little bit older. But like when I was in high school, I would mess around quite a lot. So I would just do my work outside of school, so that when I was in school, no matter what happened, like if there was a fire alarm or anything like that, it did not affect me at all. So, because I knew like the stuff going on in class. I went to an all-boys school. Like it was so funny. Like there was a lot of banter. So I'd just like play video games in class during English, or mess around with the other people there, and that was what made it really fun. But yeah, I was lucky enough that I could actually focus when I went home, and I get things done there, which is just way more efficient for me, at least, than studying at school around lots of rowdy boys.
Yeah. What extracurriculars did you participate in I guess high school and now?
Now, not so much. I think the only thing I do is gym, because COVID's just a massive spanner in the works, I guess co-curricular could be that I'm going snowboarding in 2 weeks, but in high school I kept soccer up pretty consistently until year 11, end of year 11, I think, just because soccer did take a lot of time for training. But I did a lot of tennis as I went into year 11 and year 12 as a replacement, which was a little bit less time intensive. And then our whole specialist maths class just made a table tennis team with our specialist maths teacher, and we just messed around like every week against all these like really, really good, I guess, tryhards from the other colleges and schools. So that was pretty fun. But that's basically what I was doing, and I was doing gym as well. Through year 11 and 12, it's very lightly. What about you? I know you do swimming, basketball, that sort of stuff.
Yeah. For me, so swimming and basketball I've always kept up. School is more regulated. They like, you have to do a sport, and so I picked swimming and basketball. Now it's like I voluntarily do it, but just because I enjoy it. In high school I did a lot of public speaking and a little bit of debating as well. And in uni you kind of have to like look for avenues to do those. So I haven't pursued them as much. Like in school you have like house public speaking, school public speaking, but in uni you don't really have like, I haven't heard of much like uni public speaking. So at the moment it's just the sport for me and like YouTube.
Yeah, I completely forgot about a ton. So like I was heavily involved with music through year 12. I was the head of rock band at the end. But I still do like this thing called Med Review. I'm sure Monash has their own Med Review thing. Yep. I'm not really a drama kid, but I did a bit of that first and second year, and then first year, sorry, and then I did like tech for that, and then now I play music for it. So I still keep it all up, and I mean, when I was doing computer science, I would definitely go to as many kind of events as possible with the engineering societies and all that. I think that society is pretty cool as well.
Okay. Yeah. I might have a look at their performance or something. Maybe review it Monash. I think some.
Yeah, you should.
Yeah. There are people I know who did it. So some more like specific questions. With UCAT, how do you comprehend info in VR while speed reading? Do you still remember your like approach to that?
Yeah, but I'm trying to figure out like what will help this person. Probably means that your speed reading probably needs improvement, but I just can't know what the specific issue is with your speed reading. I would read the whole premise and then remember the whole thing and then answer the questions. But that was just my approach. I wouldn't say I'm a total expert on UCAT. You're probably more of an expert than me, Karen.
Yeah, sure. For me, in the verbal reasoning, the way I approached it was, the exact question was, how do you comprehend info in VR while speed reading? Yeah, the first thing is a lot of the info is like useless to your questions or to the specific question you're looking at. It's not that important. So for me, when I get any text, I just skim it to the point that I know what it's about. So it might be about like beaches or about like World War II because the topics are so diverse. I think that just helps me have some context on it. And then I just go straight into the questions, and then you like look for keywords and stuff. And as you go through the questions, usually I build up a better idea of the text as a whole. Like the start was talking about this because question 1, I had to find something from the start, and yeah, that's how I sort of did it. But I think if you just read it from top to bottom and try and retain everything, that's pretty difficult to do because there's quite a lot of info.
Yeah. So to do the thing I did takes many months of practice. Because it's basically reteaching yourself how to read at another level.
Yeah. Were all your sections like similar results, or did you do particularly well or bad in like a section?
I think mine were mostly even. I remember that my exam crashed in QR, but that still ended up being my highest. In terms of the actual scores, I have absolutely no idea now. But yeah, I'm pretty happy that's done. I'm actually going to be sitting the UCAT like in 1 week just to see how the UCAT has changed, which will be interesting. I'll just be sitting there just like going through the questions on July 1st.
Okay, so just to see like the questions.
Yeah,
that's pretty interesting. Alright, would you say UCAT is a lot more important than ATAR? And also a linked question, can you get an interview with a really good UCAT, but like 98-ish ATAR? I think it heavily depends on what uni you're applying to, because they view them differently.
I don't think 98 will cut it.
ATAR, you reckon?
Yeah, 98 itself, I don't think will cut it, unless you've got any factors. But having a really good UCAT is a good thing to have.
From my experience with Monash and the people I know who received interviews and like did some training with me as well, a lot of surprisingly like had pretty low UCATs, like quite low UCATs, like 70th percentile, 80th percentile, and they scored an interview because their ATARs were quite high. And yeah, I was really, really surprised because I hadn't really heard of that before. But yeah, I'm not too sure on the flip side, but I haven't heard many people who like had fairly low ATARs and really high UCATs and got it.
Yeah. I know with Monash, it's slightly easier if you're from Melbourne. I know that all of my friends from Adelaide who got to Monash, like, all had like crazy ATARs and crazy UCATs, and they still didn't get the purely Commonwealth supported place. Like, they still had that thing where they have to do some rural, but it wasn't bonded.
Yeah.
I can't remember what it was.
It's just called like rural. Yeah, rural cohort.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think Monash does heavily prioritize local students.
Yeah.
Right, next one was with UCAT. What scores do you need for 95%? I think that one you can, I don't know, like 95% is like 3,000. Yeah, I think it's around 3,000. and whatever you
It's
need to
higher
get.
now.
High, okay, 3,000 and like 50.
Probably about 3,050. Yeah.
Okay, yeah, and whatever.
I know.
exact
I know.
scores.
Like 2 years ago, it was 3,000.
Yeah, I got 3,050, I think, in 2020, and that was like 96. So yeah, it's probably 95 now.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then whatever actual scores you need to make up that is whatever you need. How do you suggest reviewing mock exams? Did you do that at all when you were completing the UCAT?
Yep. UCAT.
Yeah, you can.
Again, my kind of process is quite specific because I did do ICANN Med, but I always value systematic approaches. So, I'd always try and look at the question and not just figure out how to do the question itself, but figure out how I can make adjustments to my approach to just VR questions in general. Whenever I do a VR question, and that's how I kind of refined my process. But yeah, again, I would say you're more of an expert than me.
Yeah, that's the main thing is actually going through the exam. Like for me, I was a pretty diligent student, and I still didn't go through like every exam thoroughly afterwards because I'm just drained after like 3 hours, and I just kind of want to move on. So I think that's kind of the first step, just going through, like literally going through the questions, and just by doing that, you will have learnt a lot and done something that not many people are willing to do. And figuring out the questions, plus what Zach just said, figuring out like what you should change broadly so that you can get as many of those questions correct next time.
Yep. 100%. How many hours of study would you do during the holidays? Personally, me, I will be not doing any study. I will be chilling.
I might do some. I didn't do any last year, and uni holidays I usually don't do any. But just because we have an exam at the end of the year which covers year 1 content as well, so I might go over some of that just because this semester is really busy and I probably won't have time to revise year 1 content then. Someone else I've never heard of the UCAT. Is that different from the GAT? Did you have to do the GAT in? You didn't have
What's
to
the
do
GAT? I forgot.
Oh no, it's just like
General achievement. Oh,
yeah.
Yeah.
You had to do
No,
that?
we don't have GAT.
Okay. Yeah, UCAT's just a specific test. It's if you want to study medicine, then you got to sit the UCAT, and those scores affect your chances of entering a medicine course.
I think it's a really crazy thing. It's just like med's so different that it needs to have an extra exam, which is worth the same as your ATAR. It's like crazy.
Yeah. What does your day-to-day study routine consist of? Do you study every day?
No. What's the question?
What does your day-to-day
Oh, yeah,
study routine consist of?
Yeah, I don't study every day, so whenever I live stream, that's usually when I'm studying. And that's how I avoid distractions and procrastination. I will put accountability on it because I don't trust myself. That's just what I know for myself. I don't usually study off camera.
Okay. Yeah, I study a fair bit. Like in between classes and stuff, I would study, and at home, I guess a little bit, but yeah, I don't really know how to quantify. It's just day-to-day study routine. So in the morning, I don't study that much. I try and watch lectures, I think for me, in the morning, because then I sort of get it out of the way, and then everything else I do is like a bonus. Whereas if I get to like nighttime and I haven't watched that lecture yet, it's pretty draining for me. So I guess I watch lectures in the morning, then go to class, and then do some like personal revision and like pre-work for the next day at night.
I almost always study at night, because I actually want to get different type of work done in the morning, because that's when I'm most, like night is actually when I'm least awake, least, I guess, I have the least ability to think, but I will study at night because, again, that's when just distractions are not there. I'm not needed at work, business doesn't need me, and I rather, kind of focus on some of those, I guess, more complex things like how do I, make better YouTube videos? How do I grow the business? And I'll do that in the morning. So yeah, study is actually, like I said this in a video. I got it's quite controversial, but for me, study is my lowest priority. I put first is I think spending time with people, socializing. Second was experiences, and then third was relaxation, properly having time to myself, and then fourth was study.
Yeah.
So it's quite different for me.
Yeah, and it's different to a lot of people.
Yeah.
They'd be.
Yeah.
Yeah. Is it really that bad to study late night? I think 12 a.m. is okay. I guess 1 to 2 a.m. for me personally, I wouldn't do that too much because it kind of just ruins my next day. Any later than that, it's unless you literally have something due the next day, probably you don't really need to be up that late. That's my opinion of that.
Yeah, it depends on how much you feel it's affecting you. It might be even one of those things that you don't even recognize how much it's affecting you because you've never had the alternative. But for me, I usually go to bed at 9:30 or 10, and then I'll wake up at 6:30 or something like that. So I know that if I stay up late, I just don't do anything productive or meaningful or fulfilling or even makes me feel better about myself. Going on TikTok, yeah, it's cool, but it's not really doing much for me. So I'll often just go to bed. But yeah, when I do have to study, I might go to bed a little bit later. Not ideal. I would prefer to have an hour to 90 minutes not doing anything before going to bed. But yeah, it just depends if it's affecting you and you think it needs to change.
And then a couple inline ones, but then I don't have many other questions after that. I'll just answer these ones quickly.
Yeah.
Let's see. I haven't done well in my past 2 inline stacks. What is the possibility of getting 40 plus or 45 plus? Also, I go to selective school. Yeah, if you go to a selective school, you have a bit more leeway, I guess. You don't need to be doing extremely well because generally people do quite well. And they'll probably boost you a bit in the exam. And yeah, so it's a bit hard for me to answer this question because I don't know what haven't done well, what that takes you. But I guess the best way once again is to look at your ranking, see what people find out from your teacher what people with that ranking got last year, and then if you feel and then that will determine how hard you need to work the rest of the year and in the exam how well you need to do to get 40 plus. Because if you consider getting B's not doing well, but then people who got B's last year got 40s, then that means you have a really high potential of doing better because you feel as if you can improve upon that quite easily. And the next one, how do you improve in Eng-Lang, essays, and ACs? ACs, I had some common examples that I would rely on each time. And then I would have specific examples to the text. So the common ones just gave me something to write about to begin with, which was good to get me started. With Eng-Lang essays, you just got to find contemporary examples wherever you can. Wherever you on Facebook and stuff, just note it down if you see news articles. But otherwise, nothing beats sitting there for hours and searching because there's no better way to do it. Because yeah, for that subject, Eng-Lang, we have to find examples from the year we do the exam in. So it's good if you have examples who are different to other people as well. So that was a very time-consuming subject for me.
Similarly, again, how to improve in your English lang essays. Just for English in general, writing better essays, you do need to get a better grasp of how, what's lacking in your essays. And I know that's a very general answer, but it is the key. You need to know what needs to be done better, essentially. Specific to the examples that you're writing. So obviously high volume of just practice and creating essays is going to help. But you need good processes to actually achieve big steps of improvement each time, ideally. So, make friends with your teacher is one of the things that I would recommend. And then obviously there's other things you can do. Tutors and stuff if you need.
Yeah. Leo was asking about his chance of scoring 40 or 40 plus. I would say, and he says he's in the middle of the cohort. Yeah, you definitely want to improve in your scores to give you a better chance of scoring 40 or 45 plus. Because I think in any school, no matter how good your school is, not many people score 40 plus or 45 plus. It'd be like significantly less than the top half of the cohort. No half cohort. Like at no school does half the cohort get like 40 plus or 45 plus. But you still have a chance. Like you're in the middle. It's not like you're towards the bottom. That's it with the questions on my side.
Cool. What have you got planned for tonight?
I have swimming training, which
Oh, yeah.
I will likely go to. I have a competition this weekend, so I'd like to train for that. How about you?
I'll probably go out after this. I think we've got like a private venue booked. Like, I don't know, man, like how modern students are, but like there's a lot of partying that goes on.
Oh yeah, I don't really go because I don't enjoy partying that much. But
Yeah.
I think if you wanted to go, there is quite a lot of options to go to.
I think there's quite a lot, yeah. We'll get pretty rowdy. But yeah, we finished the semester, so good reason to celebrate.
I think there are 2 final questions. I think we'll get done with these, and then we can always do another live next time.
Yep.
What subjects should come first in exam revision? What are your thoughts on that?
The ones you suck at. They'll need the most time to kind of work on. Yeah.
For me, in terms of which ones you should start earlier in, definitely like the areas you feel the most rusty. But as it gets closer to the exam, then you shouldn't focus as much. Like if you're focusing like 75% of your effort on those subjects you're bad at, the closer it gets to the exam, I think the less that percentage should be. Because you really don't want to neglect your other subjects as well. Because they're probably the ones that like carry you a bit.
100%.
When would you recommend starting practice exams? I think Aisha said you did a week before the exams.
That was for year 10. For year 12, I was basically doing practice exams the whole year. Like, because I was able to learn quite a lot of the content. Like, for like, let's say term 1, I'd be like 5 weeks ahead sometimes. But I definitely wasn't going to year 12, I was not ahead. But I would learn the content for the week, and then I would try and assess myself on exam level questions on that content. So technically, I guess I was doing exam questions the whole way through. But usually, yeah, for someone in general, like I think starting once term 3 begins is a nice time to start getting into exam preparation. Just a nice sweet spot.
Yeah, I think mid-year is pretty good. Because there are a lot of practice exams to go through. But of course, starting early, like once you learn the content, we have like specific books that have all exam questions arranged by topics. So those are pretty good
Same.
for when you complete your topics. ICT asked, hey Socrates, I missed the message earlier, but ICT asked, did you answer my Metafy meta-entry question? For me, I used both. I used meta-entry first, and then I bought Metafy after that. Did you use either, or was it purely Arcanet?
I used Arcanet and Metafy for questions.
Okay. Yeah, I used Metafy for questions as well.
Metafy doesn't really teach you how to do it.
Yeah, I don't remember the exact website layout, but I remember, there were a lot of question banks. I think I like the Metafy page because it's quite pretty. It's like blue and like bright. It made me want to do practice.
It does look good.
Managing UCAT and like other studies during the holidays. What are your thoughts on that?
So I use this thing called the Eisenhower matrix. This is just I guess like one of those prioritization frameworks that you can use to better manage tasks. So kind of just comes down to like what are the things that are important, what are the things that are urgent. I'm pretty sure I actually am about to upload something onto my Instagram explaining this if I haven't already. But UCAT and Unit 4, I mean, UCAT, if you're doing UCAT this year, it's becoming pretty urgent, so I'll definitely put more time to that. But if it is next year for you, I'd still spend like your early days going through UCAT, because you're never going to feel the urgency to get it done later, because you know that you've got Unit 4. Oh, you're got Unit 4, so you're going to be doing UCAT in a month or so. So I would prioritize UCAT because you want that to go well. And then you can focus on, Unit 4 later on in the day, But I'd probably put a little bit more time towards UCAT just so it goes well. But yeah, this is the Eisenhower matrix. We're kind of just thinking about what things are truly important and what things are urgent that you have to do. And when I say, what does important mean? Like, what is an important task to you? Almost everyone thinks if it's urgent, which is different. Something that's important has a long-term consequence if you don't keep it up. So like piano practice, or like going to swimming, or managing a UCAT practice through the year. Those things are important. Whereas urgent just means it's got a short-term consequence. So if you don't do it tonight, you'll fail, whatever. But task management is a pretty hard thing to get to know, but it's very, 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 very useful skill.
I think I liked it when you differentiated those two. I think I heard about it a couple weeks or months ago, but I thought it was quite interesting. So for me, it began with when I picked to do my UCAT. So I picked my UCAT I think a week. So our mid-year break was 3 weeks for my school. I think I picked it either after the first 2 weeks or after the first week. So essentially for me, I was like, first week and 2 weeks, all the way up until my UCAT, I'm going to focus on the UCAT. I might do some other schoolwork just for diversity. I might do some homework that we had to do or whatever, just because I couldn't do UCAT 24/7. But I would focus on the UCAT. And then afterwards, I still had a week of the holidays to focus on my VCE studies. But I guess if your UCAT is dominating, is at the end of your holidays, then I guess try to get your schoolwork out done quite early, so that the week leading up to the UCAT, you can basically put all your effort into it. Because it's really annoying if you have to balance it with other stuff, and when something so important and urgent is coming up.
Yeah, I literally took days off school just so I could prepare for UCAT.
Quite confident in methods. That's some maths one. How would you take yourself to the next level? It's just a matter of doing practice exams. I guess depends what your next level is. If your practice exams are basically full marks, then I wouldn't say there's too much you need to do. It's probably just silly mistakes then. Probably not much you need to worry about. And how many marks did I drop for my special methods exam? I think methods 9 or 10. And no, I don't remember. I'll get back to you on that. It's been too long. I think I've told people in lives, but I don't remember the exact number at the moment. And finally, if I live an hour from Monash, should I look into on-campus minor accommodation? Yeah. I think it's up to you. It's a bit of a financial choice, probably the main thing here. I don't think you need to go to campus that much unless you do med. And so if you think an hour is fine, then that's okay. But if you think travel's too much of a hassle and you're fine with sort of being a bit further away from your family, and it's financially okay for you as well, then living on campus is a pretty good choice.
Yeah. How long do you take? I take an hour to get to uni.
I take less, 30, 40 minutes. But you don't go to uni that much, right? So it's
I don't. I've been 3 times this week though.
Just because it's the last week on. Or because of the exams. Is that why?
Yeah.
Do you drive to uni?
I do. I will probably take the train next semester because they kind of fixed it up now, so that will be good. But that will take an hour and 20 minutes instead of an hour. So yeah, it's a bit long.
Yeah. I would prefer public transport, I think, for exam days, because you can sort of study a bit and stuff. Whereas if I drive, I'm just thinking about the exam. There's nothing I can do about it. I just have to pay attention to the road.
I'm often late, so I drive so that I'm not late. Yeah, that's my issue. Cool.
Alright, the quick prioritize first in terms of study. I think as Archie said, prioritize your weakest first. Or is that just for exams?
How were your organization skills? Okay. What did you prioritize first in terms of study? I would focus on what's most important. So the things that need me to work on it early, so that I don't end up cramming it later on. So the example I usually give is like year 11, year 12. So I did year 12 subjects in year 11. So what is the long-term consequence of me not focusing on this year 11 subject? Nothing. What's the short-term consequence? I get a bad grade in my year 11 report, but that's not going to go to my ATAR. So if I had a year 11 test that I was going to sit tomorrow, but I have this year 12 assignment due in 3 days, I would consciously choose not to do well in the year 11 test so that I could spend that time on the year 12 assignment. So that's like, how you kind of use the importance and urgency thing to help you out there. But I would always use that framework. You will need to do the urgent things, and there will be things that are important and urgent, but you will never feel like you have enough time to do those important but not urgent things. So you kind of just have to use discipline to just get it done early in the day or whatever, to ensure that you're still hacking away at it before things come too late, which is often what happens for students with like year 12 exams. They leave it too late, or UCAT, they leave it too late because they just haven't prioritized it earlier. It's never going to be urgent until it's too late. So that's a pretty common thing.
For me, I was pretty connected with my teachers and stuff, so I was pretty like invested with them, and they were with me. So for me, I kind of wanted to do everything, but I would get the stuff, like the homework stuff done. I guess it's sort of the opposite to artist, now that I think about it. But yeah, I'd get the homework done just really quickly because it wouldn't take me much time, and I guess some of the homework was useful to me. And after that, I'd do like my personal revision. And in terms of priorities for that, I guess whatever I was most behind on, and if it wasn't that, then like, I guess whatever's most impactful for me, like maybe a homework essay or something for English, that would take some time.
Yeah, so, I think for me again as well, like usually my examples of what happened in my life are not relatable sometimes for other people. In year 12, I was running 2 businesses. So I needed a lot more time management and task management to, manage everything. And I was doing that in year 11 as well. So, sweet as.
Cool. All right. I think we're done for questions then.
Yep.
Thank you guys
Cool.
for tuning in, and we'll catch you guys next time.
Awesome. Thanks, everyone.
Yeah.
Thanks for the questions. And I'm sure we'll do this again at some point. Not sure when, but let us know if you have any questions after this, and we'll get to it.
Yeah, cool. See you guys later.
Cool. Have a good one, everyone.
Alright, nice. I finished.